Have you heard of the company BYD? BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, is one of the world's leading electric vehicle makers, selling more EVs globally than even Tesla. They like to call themselves the biggest brand you've never heard of. This major success story started with the vision of BYD's founder and CEO, Wang Chuanfu.
女士们、先生们，大家好，我是王传福，欢迎各位参加比亚迪新能源乘用车欧洲发布会。比亚迪1995年成立，从研发制造二次充电电池起步，开发出太阳能储能电站、电动车，形成了能源从获取、存储到应用的新能源整体的解决方案。面对全球气候变化和能源问题，我们希望用绿色的科技造福后代，保护地球，助力为地球降温1摄氏度。带着这个梦想，比亚迪2003年进入汽车行业。
As you heard from Wang Chuanfu himself, BYD began in 1995 making rechargeable batteries. But with concerns over climate change, they decided to use their battery expertise to create green transportation technologies and electric vehicles. Under his leadership, BYD has relentlessly innovated, vertically integrated its operations, and leveraged strategic government support to push past competitors and embrace the future of electric mobility through global expansion.
Now, China's BYD has overtaken Tesla as the world's largest seller of electric vehicles. Even if you've never heard of BYD, there's a chance you've been in one of its buses. While its taxis prowl the streets of some of the world's biggest cities. But buses and taxis aren't the reason why BYD has overtaken Tesla. Instead, it's a fruit of long-term strategic thinking on the part of BYD itself and the Chinese government. And it's setting China up to be the dominant global player in the transportation of the future. Electric vehicles, a business that could be worth $8.8 trillion by the end of a decade. Here are the three most important things that have made BYD the king of EVs. The Chinese government has played a huge role in BYD's rise.
We've arguably never seen anything like this in terms of the amount of support that China has extended to automakers, specifically pertaining to EVs.
Beijing has given an estimated $30 billion of tax exemptions to the industry since 2010 and may waive a further $97 billion by 2027.
China actually takes a carrot and stick approach. They set mandatory EV output targets for automakers, but they also offer cheaper loans and cheaper land and R&D subsidies to all those EV makers.
And BYD has been a massive beneficiary of that. It still sells most of its electric vehicles in its home market. But of course, Tesla has also benefited from Chinese subsidies, which is where the second reason for BYD's rise comes in. Most of BYD's cars are simply a lot cheaper than Tesla's. In fact, it sells 10 popular models starting from less than Tesla's cheapest offering for the Model 3 sedan. And BYD sells a lot more of the cheaper vehicles in its lineup.
They have very cheap models starting from $10,000 US.
Their approach has been extremely different in the sense that Elon Musk believed that you had to sort of start from the high end with a sexy performance car to get people interested in electric cars and then work your way down the price spectrum. BYD went at it from the other end, where it was about cheap taxis and buses that needed a heck of a lot of batteries, and really sort of drove down the prices of the batteries that they could put into passenger cars.
While the average price paid for a Tesla is about $45,000, the average BYD sells for roughly half that. That, of course, raises the question: how can it sell them so cheaply? The secret to that price tag lies in what is known as vertical integration.
Our vertical integration capability gives us the flexibility in the fast response to the market trend, as well as the better support for brand developing and customer service.
That's a fancy way of saying that they make a lot of the things that go into their vehicles themselves.
Car makers usually buy most components from suppliers such as Bosch, Continental, and Aptiv. Volkswagen, for instance, only makes 35% of the parts in its ID.3 electric car. Tesla, meanwhile, makes 68% of the parts that go into its Model 3 made in the US. BYD makes 75% of the parts that go into the Seal, its flagship model.
The most important factor is that BYD is the only automaker that produces all of its batteries in-house.
That was hugely important during the pandemic when the supply chains were just absolutely in a state of chaos for the industry. The fact that BYD was in control of its own destiny gave them a huge leg up over the rest of the industry. and especially as it pertains to batteries. This is a company that has been in the battery space since the 1990s.
The combination of generous subsidies, making most components in-house, and offering very affordable models like their $10,000 EVs allowed BYD to undercut Tesla significantly on costs. Their different approach of starting with mass market rather than luxury vehicles paid off tremendously within China. However, becoming the world's top EV brand requires looking beyond just the domestic market. The real question is, how has BYD grown outside of China to become one of the world's biggest car makers? And what challenges does it face?
In 2021, BYD started to step up its global expansion. It started to launch more passenger vehicles across the global markets, including Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Europe. It's still a very new entrant in global markets. The volume contribution is rising, but still small.
Even so, BYD inside 3 years has become one of the top-selling EV brands in markets such as Thailand, Brazil, and Australia.
It also remains to be seen whether this company can, quickly grow in some of these newer markets that it's entering where it isn't well known, it isn't recognized.
The two most prominent challenges in BYD's global expansion will be first, regulatory uncertainties, and second, brand awareness. The European Union is investigating into Chinese EV subsidies. Chinese automakers, they are exporting more of their EVs into Europe because those cars are produced in China, so the production costs are pretty low, which allows the automakers to set their prices in the Europe cheaper than the European counterparts, which has been very alarming to the European auto industry.
One way around that will be to increase the amount of local production.
Definitely, localization is one of the very important strategy of BYD's Europe strategy. And so we are considering, we're evaluating different locations in Europe and where we can build the cars.
And apart from buses and trucks, BYD isn't in the US.
The trade tensions between Beijing and Washington are keeping BYD back and giving them pause to entering the US market.
BYD has rapidly risen to become the world's top EV seller. But maintaining that lead globally presents new obstacles around regulations, brand recognition, and localizing production. Despite these challenges, BYD is determined to drive the electric mobility future worldwide. While the competition intensifies, BYD's innovative vertical integration and affordable EVs position it well for continued growth. With this overview of BYD's trailblazing journey, we'll now analyze their strategy for global expansion.